later in life, um, I will go ahead and do like divorce and family issues. And Lonnie, you had the work and home balance. Chaz, or Chaz, sorry, not Chaz, had workplace dating and relationships. Hanson, would you like to take either substance abuse or same-sex relationships? And we just need to think about how the issue would impact the workplace and think about how we would address the issue in the workplace. Sure. So I'll go ahead and go first. Divorce and family issues when they happen in the workplace are like a really difficult thing because it's not really something you can control, and you can't really ask somebody to be like, okay, well, you leave your home life at home and you leave your work life at work. I mean, like that's a great goal to have, but a lot of times it just doesn't work out that way. And you know, one of the articles we read was on divorce and how much that can really affect the workplace. And I think family issues, like if the person is having family issues, it can affect their performance and their, you know, all around, their right, I guess mental capacity. It can affect them, and it can also affect like the relations that they have with their coworkers. As far as this issue goes, it's kind of one of those things where you can help find those some resources, like it talked about in the article, like you know, whether it's counseling or whether it's assistance or whatever. I mean, I think those would be really great assets to point out. And if we're supposed to show, like, share a story, I worked with a lady and her husband was a drug dealer. I didn't know any of this until after he got, I guess, in trouble with the law. And she was always one of those people that was very like brutal about the way she did her job, and she was very effective. I'm not saying that she wasn't effective, but not everybody really liked working with her because she was really blunt and kind of brash and mean, and you know, none of the residents really liked working with her. But I think a lot of that, you know, was caused by the issues that she was having at home. And I mean, it would be really difficult to have a husband who's in trouble with the law because he's a dealer. So, does anybody want to go next?
Well, I'll talk about mine because I'm not sure if the other two are still typing. But so mine was work and home balance. And I really chose, I think I chose this one because I have worked since I was 18, and let's just say I'm in my early 40s right now. And so this is something that I have actually struggled with throughout my career because I have always been I would consider myself to be a very good employee. I am driven and I'm trying to always learn new things. And, you know, there was a time where I worked in retail and I just found myself moving up that corporate ladder a bit too fast. And when now I've looked back at it and I've realized that that really affected my home life because, you know, after reading the paper, I was thinking about my own children. I think my older two, you know, when you get so wrapped up in work and it's not just 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or anything like that, but you're so about making the sales and getting things ready and everything else, that becomes your life. Everything else, including family, is just, you know, something along the way. And for me, I guess in a way, I didn't realize it at the time that I was very lucky that my husband was the stay-at-home dad. Although to me, it still wasn't perfect. You know, he didn't read bedtime stories and everything like that, but I still couldn't do the same thing. But I still find myself now where my oldest is 18, and my youngest is 9, that I still have to tell myself, leave work at work. Day is done, come home and enjoy time with your family. And the thing is, the impact that this can place on the workplace, it may look like it's a good thing, like, productive, and you have somebody who's always there and helping. But in the long run, truthfully, what I've seen is with other people as well, is that they sometimes burn out. Then you lose good. And I think the best thing for employers to do, and like you said, it's not necessarily something we can, as an employer, can sort of butt in and say, hey, I think you're taking this a little bit too crazy. But I think it is good for management or supervisors to realize when their employees are putting a bit too much in, and that there may be other issues going on behind, at home. Maybe they're having struggles with divorce, or maybe they're dealing with substance abuse, or other things like that. And sometimes you just have to, as an employer, you have to notice those things, especially if you really value the employees, and you just have to see what they can do to help them. Hey, you've done such a great job on this project. Why don't you take the next few days off? Or even if it's something serious, requesting that they take time to see a counselor or somebody to talk about other things, that maybe that stuff that don't have to do with work. Because truthfully, I think this is part of the reason why I left the States. Because I was actually working 2 full-time jobs, 80 hours for each, 40 hours a week for 2 different jobs. And I was to the point that I almost got in a car accident at 5 o'clock in the morning, because I was pushing myself, because I had become so comfortable and so accustomed to the lifestyle of having all of this money and my family being comfortable. And it wasn't until we came to Samoa that, there are shops are closed on Sundays. Everything on Saturday closes by 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have the rest of the day to enjoy your family and do your chores before Sunday. Public holidays are huge here, so we have those days off, and there really aren't jobs that are overnight or anything. And so everything functions from until 5 o'clock or so. And so it really made me realize that work can be done at work, and I need to spend time with my family. And I've been so grateful for that. But I think that there can be some damage if if it goes unaware of, or it's not taken care of.
I think you're 100% right. Anson says, no life experiences, only have Google. The impact of alcoholism and drug dependence in the workplace often focuses on 4 major issues: premature death, fatal incidents, injuries, accident rates, absenteeism, extra sick leave, loss of production. Additional problem areas can include tardiness, sleeping on the job, after effects of substance use, such as hangover and withdrawal, affecting job performance, or decision-making loss of efficiency, theft, lower morale of coworkers, increased likelihood of having trouble with coworkers, supervisors, or tasks, preoccupation with obtaining and using substances while at work, interfering with attention and concentration in legal activities at work, including selling illicit drugs to other employees, higher turnover, training of new employees, and disciplinary procedures. And actually, I had an experience with this. I work in a nursing home assisted living setting where we have access to pretty powerful medicine, and we have to be very careful with how well we lock up our lock boxes, because some of the employees that are not authorized to pass medicines can have access to those and potentially steal those medicines. But one of the things that isn't really well known is not only does that employee become high on whatever this is, but they also so they lose their efficiency in their production. They don't get their jobs done. They leave their jobs to other people, which makes really frustrated and angry coworkers. But another thing that you don't realize is a lot of these people are on Medicaid, and Medicaid in the States only allows you to fulfill prescriptions every 30 days. Whether you're out, whether you have too many, it doesn't matter. You're only allowed those prescriptions every 30 days. So now, because somebody stole, or allegedly stole somebody else's pills, that person now has to go without that relief or, necessary prescription because somebody else was selfish and took it for them when they didn't exactly need it. So that's my experience with that. And it's really sad and it's really hard to see. Chad says, I've had coworkers many times show up high, drunk, or with a hangover. It makes the work hard to do because they do not want to be there and don't act completely themselves. I think it will always have a negative impact in the workplace. I 100% agree with you, Chad. And, it's one thing to say, it's just really hard as an employer to look at those things and not, crack down on them because then it affects the coworkers. But if you do crack down on them, they'll be like, oh, this is so unfair. This is so unfair. But if you work in healthcare, like I know Chad and I do, or I'm pretty sure Chad does, it's kind of hard not to. I mean, it's really hard because they're not providing the care that is, is needed, and they're not providing that safe workplace that they need to provide. And I mean, there's so many facets that go into that, particularly in healthcare. Chad says, his workplace dating relationships. I've never dated anyone within my job, and I don't think I would anyway. I've had a couple of older women I worked with try to get me to date their daughters. I simply said no because of my work relationship with them. I didn't want any hard feelings. I've seen people do it, and it ruins their relationship at work. One guy left the department because of the problems they had in their dating relationship. I've also seen a couple get married, the doctor and the nurse, and they've been doing well as far as I know. It can go both ways. I know that if you were within the same department, you cannot be working together. If you were married, siblings, or your mother or father working there with you, they won't allow it at the company I work for. I would address it like my company does. Don't allow it within the same department because if you work with someone you are dating or married to, and something bad happens at home or at work, the workplace is greatly affected more than if two people are in a relationship usually. I've seen people who don't like each other have worked with each other, but imagine really not wanting to be there with that other person. I would want to leave the job, call in sick all the time if I worked with them, or transfer if it was an open breakup. It is a good relationship, and at work you could play favoritism toward that person depending on your position within a company. Then that could cause problems too. I totally agree with you, Chad.
I do too. And it's funny, I was laughing at this because that's where I met my husband when 20 years ago is through work. We started working together, and that was our thing that we had in common. And sure, when we had arguments, then it was like I didn't want to deal with him at work, while we were dating or anything like that. It just was awkward, and I thought how weird. And so eventually when we got married, he stopped working. He went somewhere else, and I stayed where we were because I knew that it wouldn't work.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because that's how I met my husband too. Is I took my mom lunch one day. He worked with my mom, and I knew like walking into that relationship, like I was like, oh, he's cute. I was like, but I can't date him because he works with my mom, and I don't want to, ruin her work relationship either. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be the person you work with. So.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, I was thinking about, because I had seen a lot of married individuals separate, had their own marriages, and then they developed these workplace relationships would end up, then causing divorces and then problems within their own relationships. And it's just, it's hard to imagine myself, if being in a relationship like that, especially since I've seen so many good marriages, good families destroyed just by some stupid mistakes and because they allow themselves to have that kind of idea that they get along or understand these people better than their spouses that they've been married to or whom they've had children with and been in relationships for such a long time. So it's pretty dangerous, especially at work.
I totally agree. Anson said that last part sounds like missionary life. All right, let's um, let's see. Another thing we are to do, it's kind of like a wrap up um, kind of group meeting really. The other one is same-sex relationships. I've not really had to deal with this, like first place in the workforce, but I think there's a lot of ways that this can really affect the workplace. I mean, there's such a stigma right now against same-sex relationships anyway, but especially with the hate and stuff that can come with something like that. That's very it's kind of a hot topic right now. Basically, how I would address the issue is just make sure that whatever they were doing stayed outside of work. They wouldn't be affectionate at work or whatever. Just like we would ask any other kind of couple, because it can definitely affect people and not just the coworkers, but it can affect work ethics. It can affect just like all of the other things can. And sometimes, I think the hate plays a big part in why, I would ask them not to do it at work and leave their relationship kind of at home. Chad says he hasn't seen any same-sex relationships within the workplace.
I can't say that I have either.
Lonnie, what would you do in this situation for like the same-sex relationships?
Well, I think it's, and what's really, I don't know, I'd really have to, like you said, as far as public affection and stuff like that, I would think that they'd still need to keep in consideration others, the way that they feel about it, and if they're uncomfortable with a man and a woman, kissing them in public as well, then, and they feel uncomfortable about that, I don't know. That's, like I said, I haven't seen anything like this before, but I know that it's such a sensitive subject now, especially in these days. And it's something that's so much more aware, in our society today, that especially here in Samoa, it's not something that you see at all. I'm sure that there are things that happen, but, we just don't think of those things about same-sex relations in Samoa very often. Most of that comes to us here from the news or TV and stuff like that. And it's just, but in the workplace, I think, I'm trying to even imagine in my own workplace, I would say you have to go see the bishop.
It's kind of difficult because you work for the church, it's not really something that we are very accepting of.
Yeah. No, I don't know what, I think it would be something that you'd have to really talk to them about and just let them understand why it's sensitive to the other coworkers or to the customers that you're dealing with. Not that you're condoning it yourself, but just the feeling that is, and how that can destroy, because then people become uncomfortable when they need to work with you. They may not trust you. They may not be open with those individuals that have same-sex relations. And so I think as a manager, I think just having that kind of discussion with them, saying, those are your choices, and we're not here based on our choices, but we have to be aware and understanding to other people as well. And then if they take us to the courts, well, then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, I think it's a really hard thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
It just, one of my good friends that I was raised in a church with, I think she's a transgender. I'm not really sure what all is going on in her life. I'm not very close to her anymore, but it was kind of shocking that even hit my own little girl. Let alone, when she worked with her significant other for a really long time. They worked at and lived together, and I I don't know. That would be a really difficult one. Not just as like a manager kind of position, but also as an employee. Like, how do I really feel about this? How do I really, you know, how do I react to this without being offensive, but saying that I'm uncomfortable?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can closely even say in anything too is like, you know, because I mean, in the Samoan custom, you know, tradition, there are what we call fafafines, which are males who have more of a feminine side, and it's grown to the point that they are now transgendered. You know, a lot of them have more female features and everything. And I have uncles that have been openly, who have openly admitted that they are in relationships with other men, and it's not something, they don't bring them around our family get-togethers. They don't, you know, they don't show pictures of them together. That's this just their personal life. And I think my mom has, because these most of them are related to my mom. They're either her uncles or so on. And she's always shown us that she has such a love for them because they are family. And you know, so and as respect, we don't tease or joke or anything like that about you know, individuals who have made these decisions, because we love him, our uncles, you know, as they are. Even my brother, his mother-in-law is has a female partner, and you know, I've seen nothing from my brother or from his wife that has been, you know, negative, and even my parents get along with them. And so it's really just a matter of respect. And I think as long as you get that clear to the employees, that hopefully that they be on an understanding level.
That's a really good point to bring up, is the respect aspect. Has anyone had any experience with like any of the topics that are kind of similar topics, not necessarily substance abuse or divorce and family issues or work and home balance or same-sex relationships or workplace dating and relationships? Have we had something similar to that, but not really, that we haven't really talked about? And how that would affect the workplace and how we would need to like address an issue like that?
So something other than the 5 things that we've been discussing?
Yeah, but kind of sort of like that is the impression I'm getting. It says something like, talk about a similar topic, and you can invite them to go next if anyone is planning to talk about a similar topic and how that would, you know, impact the workplace.
Well, the only thing that I was thinking about was, it's still sort of in regards to the same one that I was talking about, work and home balance. But it's more on the aspect of the home life. Like I remember an employee that he was homeless. He actually lived out of his car. You know, he's such a wonderful, really kind individual. But I remember how not having access to a shower all the time or anything like that ended up, you know, sometimes he'd come into work and he didn't smell very good or he didn't look very good, you know. And there was a time that everybody was starting to talk, all the employees were starting to talk, and the managers, and they said, well, you hired him, you talked to him. And so I actually had to pull him into the office and find out what was going on. And that's when I realized that I learned that he was actually living out of his car. He had been kicked out of the house from his parents. You know, but I encouraged him to find resources or areas that he could go to, you know, use the facilities that he needed to make sure that if he wanted to keep his job and come in and do his best every day in a way that made the customers feel comfortable, that he had to take care of himself as well. You know, it was a really hard discussion because he wasn't much younger than I was, but it was something that I really thought, and it's funny that it just sticks out to me because I just thought, what an unusual, you know, subject, because I don't think anybody else in the office or the company knew that he had been living out of his car. After a year, he was able to get an apartment and everything else worked for him. But I'm glad that I had an opportunity to talk to him and find out what was going on.
And in situations like that where you see like a coworker or an employee's behavior change and you don't really understand, but you know it's definitely in fact affecting the way they operate at work, do you recommend sitting down with them like as an HR rep and saying, hey, is this what's going on? What's going on in your personal life? What's going on, you know, something has changed and we would like to know what. Like at what point priority?
I think it all depends on the situation and as well as the employees. You know, because we have sometimes we have employees that have really good relationships with their supervisors, their managers, and so instead of sending them to HR, which you know sometimes people are come with sweaty hands and everything because they're afraid they're going to get fired. You know, we ask the managers to take care of that part and discuss with them because they've gotten to know them on a more personal level, especially you know knowing their families and such. And so I think, yeah, there are times that we, as HR or as a manager, you need to have those discussions with them, not to be prying or to get into their personal life, but just to help them know that you're here in whatever way they can, if they need help, you know, whether it's to offer them guidance for financial planning or, you know, a therapy or something else, you know, not to judge them. And then the other thing, which is huge in that aspect, is confidentiality, you know, just making sure that we're doing our part and not spreading it. Because, you know, once that gets out, if somebody doesn't keep that quiet, it just spreads. And that just is so detrimental to that individual's welfare.
Yeah. Thank you. Chad or Anson, do you have anything that you would like to add to that? Chad says, I guess one thing I can think of is stealing in the workplace. I've seen this a couple times and I've heard of people doing it. This makes the fellow employees think much differently about that or those employees who steal. It teaches some of the employees that, well, this person is stealing, I might as well, if he isn't going to get caught. It's
I totally agree with that. It's awful.
It is, and it's a really hard thing, you know, especially if it's an alleged stealing. Like you don't really know who's doing it yet, but you know that things are coming up missing, kind of a thing. And a lot of times you can narrow down where it's coming from, but it has a huge impact on the fellow coworkers and their morale. Anson, do you have anything to add?
I think the only other thing too, while we're waiting to see if Anson has anything that I can think of, is like, I don't know what to call it, but like, you know, just the groups, like cliques and such. That is, you know, and it's so easy for us to become comfortable with individuals and to form these little groups that get along, and especially in a workplace. But when you see that it becomes so tight knit that anybody else is like hazardous to your friend group, you know, and it just deters other people. You know, they don't feel comfortable coming to work. They don't feel comfortable talking to anybody else, you know, and it just really destroys the atmosphere, especially no matter what kind of work environment you're in. And so, and I was thinking about that, and I guess that's sort of where I came up with the part with the doohickeys paper. I was just thinking of that, you know, that managers group, that gang, you know, and we, you know, here, even in my office, we have those, and it's so hard. And I remember the first week or so when I first started working here, because I don't speak Samoan, I can understand it. And that's how I've been able to make it through here. But just getting the language out of my mouth does not come easily. And so I had so many dirty looks and people that, you know, other employees that just pushed me out. But, you know, at first it really hurt because I was thinking, you know, oh, do they think I'm better because I'm from the States? I was born and raised in America, so they think I'm better than them. And then I just realized, you know what? No, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm just going to keep saying hi. And eventually, you know, now I can just walk by and I can just say hello, and they're just, hi, how are you? You know, but that's a danger in any company, is having those groups formed and not open to others. And we see that in our society with different, the upper class, the lower class, the different minority groups, gays, and same sex, and those that are not, so many different. And that's the thing, is we have that society that fuels all of that. And it's just so easy for us to follow in line with it as well. Yes, that happens at the church. Satan's power is very strong here. It's really bad.
I think that happens, in church in general, even when you don't work there. I think it's, really easy to get caught up in the cliques.
Yeah, it is. And it's, it's something you really have to sit back and just try to help them understand how these different, influences are impeding the workplace, especially for us. It just makes you more aware of, it has opened my eyes even more to my past work experience to see, oh my goodness, look at all of these things that are happening. It was just right there under our noses.
Yeah. Anson says there was a coworker who was just super lazy, would do things slowly, and the whole team can't finish work on time because of him. Eventually, they have to let him do the really easy job so that we can finish the job on time. He basically pissed the whole team off because of his low performance. And it's really interesting. I like how you pointed that out, Anson, because with somebody who really drags their heels like that, it can really drag the whole team down and give everybody kind of a bitter taste in their mouth. I mean, I think it's pretty common, not just in like, work, but in every aspect, that there are groups working together. I mean, school and work and friends, and I mean, I think that's really true. Hanson says, and it is church environment, so there's layoff protection.
I don't know about that. You do something bad, you will get, the thing is, there's no such thing as of not being laid off in the church, because jobs can be made redundant. Because the church is always streamlining things, trying to make members as well as the office more self-reliant. So there are different things that happen, and sometimes that means that those different departments do end up losing jobs, and because it's streamlining with something else. And so it does happen. It does happen.
Yeah, I think it's one of the frustrating things. Like, I have a group in a different class that I just feel like I don't work with well, because it is a lot of people who work at different levels. Like, one is just like a not communicator at all, and he only like comes into meetings for like 15 minutes, and he's like, oh, okay, and then he leaves. And so it's really hard to work with, people who drag their heels, because it gives everybody kind of a bitter taste in their mouth, and then it impacts the overall effectiveness of the group and the overall, not just the production, but morale and the production and all of that. So thank you for sharing that, Anson. The other one is, what other issues students see in society that they are likely to impact their workplaces of the future?
It was funny, because that just made me think, because I was thinking about something earlier. I don't know what I was reading or watching, but I think one thing that would, in our society in this day and age, would be probably like the First Amendment, in regards to how you see a greater division between God and, our Heavenly Father and country, and it just makes me really think about, I guess, growing up. I could never imagine going to school without saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I could never imagine the coins in the US that say, "In God we trust." And now you just see such a divide in that. And I think having that kind of division in work can be very detrimental, you know, because you're going to have people that are so against having, you know, Heavenly Father's name on, you know, God on a coin, or in God we trust, or, you know, and so on. And so the second something happens, it's like, you know, bombs are going off because somebody else doesn't agree. And so to me, I think that's a huge detriment to how society can impact workplaces. You know, and unless you are humble enough to understand that there are so many different views, there are so many different beliefs, and you're open to, you know, trying to find opportunities to share that, you know, especially like when we're thinking about the gospel, to share those kind of understandings, and when not to, I think that can be a real eye-opening time, you know, when you're in the workplace.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying. I think it's really hard as a society for us not to let those things kind of impact us, you know, and especially as the church stays at a standstill and the world goes further down. Like, it's really hard, I think, to walk that fine line of being a peculiar people and being in the world but not of the world, you know, because it's really easy nowadays to be accused of being hateful just because you didn't say anything. You know, you didn't, I don't know what the right word is, you just stood by, or you just I don't know exactly how to say what I'm trying to say, but basically it's really easy for people to take their pride to a new level and accuse you of doing things and saying things that you may not have said or done. Chad says one thing is pornography is getting so normalized, and he's seen it come into the workplace. I think you're right, and pornography studies have shown how much it can totally affect a person, and not just their lives, but their personalities as well.
And not, you know, it's not just in our workplaces, it's in schools. I mean, when I first moved here to Samoa, I was working as an administrative assistant at a school, and there were like kindergarten students. And I caught this little girl with the deck of cards, and these cards, there were women like, you know, with barely nothing on. And I thought, where did you get these from? You know, and she said, of my dad, he's a taxi driver. And I thought, can I have them, please? And so then I went and told the principal, but I was thinking, how in the world, you know, is this okay to her? And that's the scary thing is, you know, like Chad said, it's normalizing, and it's like in the workplace, it's in schools and everywhere. And that can be dangerous.
Definitely.
Productivity, yep.
Anson says robots is another one, and I think he's totally right. I mean, we are getting into a more technological society, and it's kind of scary, you know, even as an administrator, what kind of job, like a healthcare administrator, what kind of job I'm going to have in the future. I mean, my job is mainly paperwork. I don't deal with a whole lot of people.
That just made me think of, I don't know if you've seen the movie, I can't remember what it's called now, about the three African American ladies that basically helped save and run NASA, where, you know, they used to just be what they called computers, where they were doing all the paperwork and all the calculations and all these things. And it was that time when IBM, or, you know, the computers were coming alive. And instead of being fearful of that, one of them just took the guns, and she just went and studied and learned how to use these computers, and she ended up managing it. I just thought, how amazing is that? And maybe with these robots, you know, instead of thinking, oh, they're going to take my job away, who's going to fix the robots? You know, we have to try and play ahead of them.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about it that way. Chad says we see that technology is reducing the numbers in the workplace too. And I think they are. fast food places using software and touchscreens instead of using humans to take orders. One of the things that I just learned not very long ago is about how economies will evolve, much like people will. And so even though those jobs aren't available anymore, there will be a different job opening up, whether it's assembling these robots or fact checking these robots, or, you know, just like Lonnie said. And my last question here is, how do we think the workplace will change in the next 10 years?
I don't know, in a way, you know, after doing some of the reading and thinking about it, and even from our discussion, you know, like I mentioned earlier, society has changed so much throughout our lives, you know, especially us in these days, that we've gone from walking on eggshells when it comes to same-sex or gay rights, to now that becoming part of the normal society. And it just, who knows where it's going to continue on from there. What is going to be okay, considered to be okay in the future. And I guess in a workplace that can be a little bit intimidating, thinking about what's to come. But then at the same time, it's also an exciting time for me, I think, when you're thinking about the changes as far as like advancement, like technology wise, the possibilities that are coming. You know, we have a lot of supervisors and managers that are over the age of 50, and they are very limited with their computer experience. But anytime I find a manager that's not filling out a report or something a certain way, I don't just log it down as, oh, they don't know how to use this. I actually find this as an exciting time to go out and teach them, and help them find something new that they can use, and how that will help them. And so that's what I sort of think about as well, you know, as far as encouraging in the next 10 years is just finding different ways to go out of the norm and just to help, instead of such a concern about, oh, you know, if everything is right. But I don't know. Just my insight.
I think that's really a great point. I mean, I really like how you put that it's not just, I mean, it's a teaching moment for all of us, and we can use that to our advantage by being able to teach somebody else. Chad says, I know that baby boomers will be retired. We are now going through that phase right now. So a younger workforce. He says he's been seeing iPhones being acceptable during work for managers because they can check their emails quickly. I think that yes, we will be able to, our smartphones are going to unlock a lot of doors, especially for working remotely, but I think at the same time, we're going to definitely see some medical suggestions about how people aren't disconnected from work. I mean, it's causing a lot of stress in people from some of the studies I've been reading. It causes additional stress on people, and people don't really want to, like, they don't let go. And so sometimes they've been asked to have mandatory vacations where they leave their phone, you know, at home or at work or whatever, so that they can do what they can be able to go home and relax and not be constantly at work and thinking about work. Chad, I totally get that mind frame, like the 85-year-old that just won't quit work. Like at that point, he or she has to recognize that they are aging, you know, and that they maybe don't want to give up the freedom of having that job, because if they were 85 and they went to apply somewhere else, like if the government wasn't working out for them or whatever, I mean, who would give a job to an 85-year-old? There just isn't anybody.
Very true, Chad.
Anton says, might be more people can work from home. Everyone has a computer. The only problem might be internet security. I think you're definitely right. I think there definitely will be more people that are able to work remotely, and we won't have as many face-to-face kind of establishments. I think there will be a lot of online establishments. I mean, it's already been coming. I mean, the recent, I don't even know what the word is. Recent statistics that the businesses have been putting out is like actual brick and mortar shops have like 30% lower sales than they did the year before. And like places like Amazon and Wish and these online retailers are really booming right now. So it's not just for stores and stuff like that, but it's also for things like healthcare. You can get on and talk to a nurse anytime you want. You don't necessarily have to go to their brick and mortar place. You just call or go on to the chat with the nurse. Chad says, oh yeah, for sure. Doctors are using software like Skype to talk with their patients and assess them. I've seen it used in our ER. Are you serious? At the ER? That seems a little excessive to me. Like, if I go in and feel like I'm dying, I don't want to talk to a computer. I want somebody to really know that I'm not going to die. That's just crazy. I mean, for some things, like, I don't know. I think it would be acceptable for some things, like, a skin rash or something, but not an ER. That's crazy. Well, really quickly before we wrap up, this has been a really good semester, and I really appreciate all of the work everybody has done to make sure that it was a successful semester, especially during the weeks that I was absent. I really looked forward to meeting with you guys every week, and I missed the weeks that I wasn't able to be here. And thank you for doing that. We have one last hurrah together, which I kind of feel like is the doohickeys paper. Does anybody have anything that they want to add to that?
No, I just want to apologize if I feel like I sort of just jumped in with those papers, because I'm just putting in my input, but if anyone else has spotted anything else, especially this week or this last paper, because it's a bit, different. There's not necessarily like these standout problems on any of these topic on this topic this week. And so I sort of had to think about it. But if you've noticed anything else, if you put your problem on there and it stands out so much more than mine, I'm going to take yours and run with it as well. So I just wanted to put that on there, mine on there, just to give you an idea of what I spotted, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only thing. So if any of you have a different problem that you've noticed, and we feel as a group that it would be easier to find solutions for those, then by all means, let's put them on there. I just don't want you guys to think that I'm just trying to be, here's my suggestions. I am not perfect, and I have different ideas and different point of views on things. And so please, if you find a different problem that you think it would be easier for us to tackle, then let's use it. Especially after our 100% paper. I was so excited about that. So thank you for everybody for helping with that. It was amazing.
It was amazing. I was really, really impressed as well. Bonnie, when I looked over it, I thought that your issues were fine. I thought of something like, yesterday, but now I can't remember what it was. So if I find another problem, I'll just add another problem and we'll just, see where it takes
Hey,
us.
who knows? We can still just use the extra problem and just maybe get extra points on our paper again. So
That would be great. So I don't know about you guys, but I would really like to have a rough final done by like no later than Tuesday or Wednesday. I would really like to be able to polish for a couple days before we submit it Friday. And since we have it like, since really the paper is kind of our last together, I think we can totally pull together and do that. So her paper is due Friday because the last day of the semester is technically Friday.
yep, that sounds good.
No, not Monday. Hanson.
Are you sure? Because we also have our other paper, our exam paper that we have to write as well. So we have both papers due at time. Okay.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I can look really quick. Phew, sorry.
Bless you.
I'm just gonna run that really quick. April 7th is when it's due.
Next Friday.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything. I love working with you. I'm sure we'll be emailing back and forth, but I just wanted to say it in person. So we will talk to you all soon.
All right.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
You too.